Hey guys! We've learned that appoggio is the coordination between the breath management and resonance from the previous video. You guys still remember that, right? Since we covered the breath management part of appoggio, now it's time to learn about resonance. Are you ready? Let's recap a little. To make a sound, we need a motor, a vibrator, and a resonator. For example, let's look at a trumpet here. You blow air, a motor, and your lips contact the trumpet, a vibrator, and the air travels through the tube of trumpet, a resonator. For singing, the breath in your lungs and trachea is motor, and the vocal folds are a vibrator, and the vocal tract is a resonator. Resonators in our body are the trachea, larynx, pharynx, mouth, head sinuses, and nasal cavity. They are empty spaces with an opening capability where the sound is amplified and enriched. The breath from the lungs travels through the trachea, then transformed into a sound after contacting the vocal folds. And finally, hitting the hard surfaces of the vocal tract to become louder and intensified. Pop singers and Broadway musical singers rarely use their resonance because their voice is amplified and intensified by a microphone. Then what makes the classical singers different from pop singers? Classical singers use their natural resonance to project their voice without help from a microphone. Singers in an opera and classical concert with an orchestra rarely mic, unless the stage is an outdoor amphitheater like the Verona Arena, which seats about 15,000 out and open. This picture of the Verona Arena shows how big and open the stage is. Wow! Amazingly huge, isn't it? You will also find it amazing that some opera singers don't use a microphone even in the Verona Arena. These singers succeeded in developing a strong enough resonance that will carry their voice in such a huge space. Even if it's not a 15,000 seat arena, the usual American opera theaters sit around 3,000. For instance, the Metropolitan Opera seats 3,800. Our own, the Cowan Center Vaughan Auditorium seats about 2,000, but even in there, it is overwhelming for us to project our voice. On top of the size of theaters, classical singers also perform with an orchestra, and its volume can intimidate singers at times. So, how can classical singers be heard in a big-sized theater without using a microphone? That's when the resonance becomes useful. The concept of the ideal resonance was developed and has been solidified by Italian bel canto tradition again, and they named it chiaro-scuro. Chiaro-scuro is a combination of two Italian words. Chiaro means bright, scuro means dark. The Italian singers and voice teachers identified that beautiful tone has both bright and dark sound quality in one voice at the same time. Crazy! Then how do we achieve this goal to produce bright and dark sound in one voice? The technique for chiaro-scuro is called the resonance balance or placement. Many voice teachers frequently mention placement, but there is a huge misunderstanding about this term because we try to locate the buzzing sensation on our face without considering appoggio. Placement, or the resonance balance, is to find a balanced shaping between mouth, throat, palate, and nasal cavity to achieve chiaro-scuro. So, if some parts of the vocal tract becomes out of alignment or constraint, it causes a tension and ends up violating chiaro-scuro. Bel canto is the 19th century Italian singing style and pedagogy. Bel canto is also a wide label used for specific vocal techniques. Bel canto voice teachers developed the concept of appoggio and chiaro-scuro, which we learned previously. Along with appoggio and chiaro-scuro, Bel canto school also formed a voice technique regarding resonance and called it as Imposto. Imposto is a rather interesting approach to resonance balance. So let's learn how we can find a good resonance of voice through this technique called the Imposto. Imposto is one of the bel canto techniques using the upper respiratory tract, such as the nasal cavity, nasopharynx, conchi, and olfactory region. In short, Imposto is the mechanism mostly dealing with the nose. To explain Imposto, let's straight the facts about the nose first, alright? The respiratory tract begins at the nostrils. As you can see in the picture, there are 3 air passages inside the nasal cavity divided by 3 layers of the conchi. The 2 lower air passages flow into the nasopharynx for breathing. But the top air passage reaches higher to the olfactory nerve for smell. This action is achieved by sniffing, and sniffing narrows the olfactory region muscles. Why don't you try to sniff and feel the upper part of the nasal cavity closing? You'll not feel the closing of the olfactory region through a regular breathing. Sniffing is the key. My voice teacher at Eastman School of Music, Dr. William McIver, always emphasized that I should breathe as if I smell a rose. He knew smelling a rose would stimulate my imposto muscles. Genius! The opening and closing action of the olfactory region is the mechanism of imposto. And we will learn how to master the imposto technique in just a moment. We'll use a 5-note scale for the imposto exercise. First, snatch a breath and close the olfactory region in the first rest. Then release to open the nose and sing ah. Number 3, take a breath and close the olfactory region in the third beat rest. Finally, sing ah as release from the closure of the nose, and so on. Ah, 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 Some voice scientists developed a systematic and computerized tool for resonance balance. It's called the vocal tract tuning, and a software called Voce Vista analyzes formant frequencies of each vowel on spectrograms. We are not going to go into details about Voce Vista today, but if you are interested in this information, you can read Resonance in Singing by Dr. Donald Miller. Now, let's check the posture before we practice the resonance balance. The neck and head posture is very important for vocal tract to find its ideal balance. Please make sure that your neck is not stretched forward, nor your jaw sticks out. Your forehead should lead the head and neck. Tilt your head lower. Feel the top of your head gently stretched and is the tallest part of your body. Feel the back of your neck gently stretched and feel its length. To avoid overstretched throat, mouth, and nose, try to breathe through mouth and nose at the same time. Breathing through nose with your mouth closed will take longer time and expand your nasal cavity unnecessarily. If you breathe through mouth while opening your mouth widely, your throat expands too much and creates a throaty sound with lots of tension. Be sure to open your mouth naturally and breathe through both nose and mouth. Remember to breathe as if you're smelling the rose to encourage the closure of the olfactory region in your nose. Let's do some exercises for the resonance balance. We are going to sing a vowel first and then mix other vowels. Once we are comfortable singing with at least a couple of vowels, we will add different consonants. Please remember that you still need to apply the appoggio technique throughout these exercises. Nasal continuants are very useful for resonance balancing. Especially M is known to help achieving the goal of both appoggio and resonance balancing. When we sing M, the mouth closes and therefore induces sound to exit through nasal cavity. Please be sure to exercise with M in the lower middle range. You can check whether you're doing this exercise correctly by pinching your nose while singing vowels. If the sound doesn't change, that means you're doing it correctly. But if the sound changes, then means the tone is not produced correctly. just practiced with a nasal consonant. To find a good tone placement, a non-nasal consonant like v also helps a lot to accomplish resonance balancing. Because v is produced with your mouth closed, it encourages singers not to inhale with open throat. It is greatly beneficial to prevent breathy phonation as well. During my doctoral study at UT Austin, I had the privilege of studying with a famous voice teacher in Houston, and her name is Lois Alba. One of many helpful exercises she introduced me is a non-nasal consonant one. Here is how it looks and sounds like. Beginners might not feel or hear the differences in your voice. At the beginning stage, the voice teacher's feedback is very important. The voice we hear ourselves is different from what others hear. We hear our voice through vibration of the bones, but others hear through the vibration of the air. Sometimes we freak out how we sound on a recording machine because it sounds very, very different from what we used to hear our voice. This is why the assessment of a voice teacher is very crucial when you learn how to balance the resonance. At first, do your best to feel the sensation rather than try to listen to your voice during your lessons. Try to remember what it feels like when your voice teacher tells you it was a good sound. Then try to reproduce the same physical sensation during your practice. Keep a lesson and practice journal will help you to stay on the track. Good luck practicing the resonance balance. Be patient and keep going.